I'll start with our sponsors, and hopefully that will give some of the other guys a chance, okay, to get on. A Year of Learning by Dr. Paul Koningsberg in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Levish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nissim Hara, Nissim ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malka Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Rav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitler, Avrameir ben Shimon, Cheryl Scher, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva, Marcia Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Oriel Paul Federbush, Oriel ben Harav Shimon. A Month of Learning by Gila and Harold Saltzman, in memory of her mother, Eti bat Yitzchak Elchanan, by Chaim and Phyllis Reese, in memory of his father, Mordechai ben Yom Tov Lipa, by Phyllis and Chaim Reese, in memory of her father, Pinchas ben Avraham. A Week of Learning, sponsored by Ron and Susan Podolsky, in memory of his mother, Fredel Bashraga Feivel, and today, a Day of Learning by Rabbi Moshe Kranzler, in memory of his father-in-law, Harav Aaron ben Harav Avraham Yitzchak, and by Cheryl and Ted Spar, in memory of her mother, Hetcha Yehudis Bas Yehoshua ben Yamin, also by Ted and Cheryl Spar, in memory of his mother, Chana Bas Mordechai. May the Shemas have an Aliyah, Krank Rafia, Velti Yeshir Hashem Matzliah, L'chol B'nai Israel, a good Gaben Shtiyah.
Hey.
Okay. Right. That's why Ted had Shlishi today. All right. All right, so I was trying to see where it was best for us to pick up, even though we did roll over to the top of Yud Bet yesterday. I'm just going to go back quickly to the bottom of Yud Aleph, Amud Beis. We remember we saw that there were two different explanations given by Abaye. Okay, and okay, in terms of what one was what Rabbi Meir said, and the other, okay, was again what Rabbi Yehuda said. And notice we were dealing with the time issue, okay, as to whether a person, according to Rabbi Meir, is never incorrect in time or only slightly off in the time, whereas Rabbi Yehuda said in the first lashon of Abaye, he could be off a half hour. In the second lashon, okay, he could be off an hour plus. Right? So that's where I'm, okay, and then they said, well, if he says it at this time, maybe it's the end of 1 hour, the beginning of another hour, back and forth. Okay, and that's where we're going to continue in a moment. Right? As we saw, okay, that at the end, bottom of Yud Aleph, Amud Beis, next to the last line. Okay, the Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Adam To'eh Sha'a U'Mashu. Okay, Maaseh Kihava, the incident that occurred, O B'Sof Shalosh, O B'Tchilat Chamesh. If it was either the end of the third hour or the beginning of the fifth hour. Right, and top of Yud Bet, today's daf, Echad minayu kata'e sha'a umashu. And one of them, he says, could make a mistake about an hour plus. And that's where we stopped yesterday. Okay, so we're now going to continue with, of course, Rab Huna, okay, making a statement. And this statement is made in front of Rava. And as a result, Rava is going to, of course, raise a question about Abaye's two explanations. Okay? So as we continue, we'll see, okay, that this is what the Gemara is focusing on in terms of this issue of time frame. Azal Rav Huna bered the Rav Yehuda. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehuda, went. Amra l'shma'atata kame de Rava. And he presented this lesson, in other words, assumably the explanations of Abaye before Rava. Amar, okay, and Rava now says, Uma elu daikinen bahani sa'ade. He says, what about if we examine closely these witnesses? The Haidika Amar Shalosh, let's say the one who said it was in the third hour, but Chilat Shalosh, maybe it was the beginning of the third hour. V'Haidika Amar Chamesh, and the one who said it was in the fifth, Besof Chamesh, it was the end of the fifth hour. V'Havya Edut Muk Chesed. As a result, that would be contradictory testimony. Velo Kadlina, and therefore we could not carry out the death penalty in a capital case. Va'ana nikum v'naktil misrega, and should we then establish and execute somebody where there's any kind of a doubt? V'rachmana amar, and the Torah itself, right? So the merciful one, v'shaftu ha'edah, v'hitzilo ha'edah. And the pasuk says clearly, right, that the congregation will judge, but the congregation will find innocent. Okay, will save the individual. Okay, the implication being two items. Number one, that it's the responsibility of the judges in the course of their questioning and examination to seek if they can find innocent. Number two, okay, that we also see that, remember, it's not like they had even a sundial, so to speak, available to them. They would be trying to define the time frame of an event by looking up at the sun and seeing where the sun is in the sky. Okay, and at one point, if I said to you, for example, I'm going to meet you tomorrow morning, okay, Friday morning. Okay, well, what time Friday morning? Maybe my intent is at 9 o'clock, and you figure Friday morning, well, at 11 o'clock. That's still the morning, okay? But clearly, if you look up in the sky and we were using the sun as our reference, there would be a difference. So that's part of the reason that we see that there's a problem here, okay? So we're seeing the example that Rava is challenging the explanations of Abaye, okay, based on how Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehuda, had shared it with him, okay, and saying if there is a possibility of conflicting testimony or contradicting testimony, how can we act, particularly in a capital case, okay? All right, so now we're about 8 or 9 lines down on Yud Bet Amud Aleph, right? Having cited that pasuk, okay, therefore Rav is going to come forward. Rav is going to give a different explanation, right? Ela Amar Rava, the Divrei Rabbi Meir, Adam to'eh shtei sha'ot chaser mashu. Says Rava, according to the view of Rabbi Meir, it's possible that a person can make an error of slightly less than 2 hours.
From the beginning of this,
Right? L'divrei Rabbi Yehuda, according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda, Adam to'eh shalosh sha'ot chaser mashu. And Rabbi Yehuda says a person can make an error of slightly less than 3 hours. Okay? The Divrei Rabbi Meir, according to the view of Rabbi Meir, Adam to'eh shtei sha'ot chaser mashu. A person can make an error slightly less than 2 hours. Ma'aseh ki hava, okay, the incident that occurred, o b'tchilat shtayim, o b'sof shalosh. It could occur as early as the beginning of the second hour, or as late as towards the end of the third hour. V'chad minayhu katai b'shtei sha'ot chaser mashu. And one of the witnesses could be making an error 2 hours, a little less than 2 hours. Okay? In other words, if you look at the sun in a summer month, if you look at it at 3 o'clock and you look at it at 5 o'clock, how much of a difference really is there? Okay? The Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, save according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda, according to this Rava's explanation, Adam to'eh shalosh sha'ot chaser mashu, that a person could make an error slightly less than 3 hours. Ma'aseh ki hava, and the incident that occurred, okay, o b'tchilat shalosh, it was either at the beginning of the third hour, o b'sof chamesh, or perhaps at the end of the fifth hour. V'chad minayhu k'ta'eh shalosh sha'ot chaser mashu. And one of the witnesses could be making an error slightly less than 3 hours. So again, okay, if I say to you, okay, if it's a summer month when the incident occurred, and the person, let's say, one witness says it occurred midday. Well, what is midday? Okay, well, one would say 2, okay, in the second hour. The other might say, fourth hour. Okay, could, again, very little difference in the movement of the sun at that point. So the Gemara picks up. It's not, but we have a Mishnah, okay, that teaches as follows. Okay? Hayu bodkin oto b'shiva chakirot, that they used to examine, okay, or question, and this is again regarding capital cases, okay, all right, 7 kinds of, I'm going to call it interrogations, because I want us to understand later in the Gemara that the Gemara is going to make a distinction between the first level of interrogation and another level of examination. Okay, so here we're saying the Mishnah says that they used to examine them with 7 kinds of questions as part of the initial interrogation. Be'eza Shavua. The first question is, what year in the Shemitah cycle? Be'eza Shana. Okay, what Shemitah cycle is it? The second question, what year in the Shemitah cycle? The next question, Be'eza Chodesh. What month in that year? Bekama b'chodesh. What's the date of that on that month? Next question. Be'eza yom. What day of the week? Next, Be'eza sha'ah. What hour of the day? Next, be'ezer makom, in what place? Vitani. And we'll say here also it was taught in a Mishnah. Okay. Ma bein chakirot lebedikot. What's the difference between interrogation and examination? Okay. Chakirot, the interrogation. Amar echad mehen eno yodea. If one of the witnesses says, I don't know, edutan betela, then their testimonies are null and void. Afilu shnehen omrim. Even if the two of them say, Ein anu yodim, okay, then when the two of them say they don't know, edutan kayemet, then it's possible that their testimony could remain, could stand. Maybe they both don't know what month, what year in that Shemitah it is, or they both don't know what number Shemitah it is. Vahavin ba, and when we discuss this, ma'ishna chakirot, ma'ishna bedikot. So we asked, what is the difference between interrogations and examinations? Va'amrin, and we said, chakirot amar echad mehen eni yodea. In regards to interrogations, if one of them says, I don't know, edutan betela, their testimony is no longer valid. Right? Dahavyala edut she'iyata hazima. Right? Because then what we're saying is that it is a testimony that cannot be challenged, contradicted, okay, can't be refuted, right? Right. In other words, they can't be shown to be edim zomami. Right? Bedikot, with regards to examination, okay, as opposed to, right? Edut she'ata yachol lahazimahi. That is, those questions are the kind where you can challenge, you can refute their testimony by means of hazama. Okay? Somebody says, well, I was there out in the field and I saw him hit him. Okay? And somebody else could come along and say, wait a second, how can you say you were in the field? Instead, you were with us in the shuk, okay, in the market. V'iyamad ta'e anshe kuli hai. He says, and if you're going to say that it's possible, okay, that a person could make, okay, so much of a mistake, chakirot de'eze sha'ah, okay, then we're going to say that the standard set of questions in regards to which hour, for example, then that would be a kind of question that you can't refute, right? The amre matai kata'ina, because people could then simply say they made a mistake. The yahavina laho kulita utayu, right? Because we would have to give them some flexibility, some room for the chance that they could have made a mistake. The Rabbi Meir, Yahavin laho mitchilat sha'a rishona ad sof chamesh. If that's the case, then according to the view of Rabbi Meir, we would have to give them I'm going to use the term like a window, okay, from the beginning of the first hour until the end of the fifth hour. In other words, the whole afternoon. If he says it could be, according to Rava, right, 2 hours plus. Okay. Ubadinhu, and this seems logical. This seems reasonable, right? The netav laho meikarat fei, that we have to give them a little bit more at the beginning. Elabein yamama lelelia, but Going later, in other words, being able to tell the difference between day and night, lo ta'u in shay, people are not going to make that kind of an error. Okay. Ula Rabbi Yehuda, and to Rabbi Yehuda, Yahavinan laho mitchilat sha'a rishona viad sof shishit. We'd have to give him a window, so to speak, from the beginning of the first hour until the end of the sixth hour. Ubadinhu, and this seems reasonable. It seems logical, right? The native laho me'ikara, that we would give him a little bit more at the beginning, me'ikara tfei, right? Why would we have to give them more time, okay, before the first witness? Ela bain yamama lalelia lo ta'u inshe, on the top of Yud Bet Amud Beis. Again, between night, day and night, people would not make an error. Okay. Ubadinhu, and this again seems reasonable. The nativ lekame tfei, okay, ela shebachamishi chama b'mezrach ub'shvi'i chama b'ma'arav. Okay, so again, if it occurred, let's say during the afternoon, right, or some part of the afternoon, again, we would have to give him a little bit more at the beginning, say at the fifth hour, okay, up till what, right, or 1 to 5. But clearly, we know that the difference between morning and day, there would be, one wouldn't make an error there either, because the sun would be in one part of the sky throughout the morning, and it would be in another part of the sky in the evening. Okay? In other words, it would be in the east in one section, and by 7th hour, it would be in the west section of the sky. Now, Gemara is going to present to us another Mishnah, and maybe this Mishnah will give us an answer to our dilemma. Tznan. We learned in the following Mishnah, Rabbi Meir Omer, Ochlin kol chamesh, v'sorfin b'tchilat shesh. In other words, here is our Mishnah, okay, where there was an argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda as to how long one could eat chametz, right? And so he's saying one eats it through the 5th hour, burns it at the beginning of the 6th hour. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, Omer ochlin kol arba. One can eat chametz through the 4th hour of the morning. V'tolin kol chamesh, and we put it in abeyance. In other words, we can't eat it, okay, but we also don't burn it then. V'sorfin b'tchilat shesh, and we burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour. Now, Gemara is going to come back and analyze what we saw before as initially the explanations of Abaye. And remember, Abaye gave 2 different possibilities. So it will first comment on the first explanation of Abaye, and then the second explanation. La Abaye aliba de Rabbi Meir. For Abaye's explanation, as regards the view of Rabbi Meir, the Amar ein adam to'eh v'lo klum. So notice the Gemara repeats, okay, that for us, that a person doesn't make an error whatsoever. Nichol kulashi, let them eat throughout the entire 6th hour. In other words, why couldn't they be able to eat 11 through the 6th hour? Ulahach lishna, and according to the other language, in other words, second explanation of Abaye, nami, also, the Amar Adam To'eh Mashu, where he said that a person makes an error a little bit. Nichol ad sof shi. Let him eat. Let us say that he can eat until the end of the sixth hour. In other words, if the prohibition doesn't really start till after the sixth hour, why can't in either of Abaye's explanations of Rabbi Meir allow him to eat chametz during the sixth hour? Why does he have to burn it at the beginning of the sixth hour? Okay. Now let's flip it and see what Abaye, based on Abaye's explanation of Rabbi Yehuda. V'Abaye aliba the Rabbi Yehuda. And according to Abaye's explanation of the view of Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar Adam To'eh Chatzi Sha'ah, that a person makes an error of, let's say, a half hour, Nichol ad palga dashi. Let us say that he should be able to eat at least the middle of the sixth hour. Ulahach lishna, and to the other language, namely the second explanation of Abaye, Nami also, de amrat adam to'eh sha'a umashu, where you say, okay, that a person might make an error of an hour plus, nichol ad sof chamesh. Let us say that he should be able to eat till the end of the fifth hour. Ela rather, Amar Abaye, Abaye's rationale and his explanation, Edut Mesura Lizrizin. Testimony is given over to those who are, let's call it attentive, conscientious, careful, okay? In other words, somebody who's going to testify is going to review in their mind, knowing that they're going to be asked questions, they will review what they know about the incident in advance to be able to, okay, give that testimony. Chametz l'kol masur, but the prohibition to eat chametz was given over to everybody. And so they may not be so careful, all right, or so knowledgeable as to the difference between 1 hour and the other hour. Okay. Now, we're going to go back to Rava's explanation. Okay. The Rabba aliva de Rabbi Meir. And Rava, explanation, according to the view of Rabbi Meir, and again, the Gemara is going to cite it for us. The Amar Adam To'eh Shtei Sha'ot Chaser Mashu, that a person can make an error slightly less than 2 hours. Mitchilat Chamesh Lo Nichol, from the beginning of the fifth hour, he should not let him eat. Chamesh Chama b'Mizrach, the fifth hour of the day, the sun is in the east. V'sheva Chama b'Ma'arav, and by the seventh hour, right, the sun is in the west. Okay, so clearly there should be a difference. Ihachi, if that's the case, says the Gemara, B'shit nami nichol. At the sixth hour, maybe we should also let him eat. Amar Rav Adabar Ahava. He's going to give a qualification now. She Yoma Bekarnata. The point is that the sixth hour is what some call the meridian, the middle of the sky. Kai. So in other words, it should be possible, even for the average person, to know then when the sixth hour is. And by that,
high noon.
Okay, high noon, good. Okay, if that's the case, then a person should be able to realize, even the simplest person who's not well educated, at this point, I can't eat chametz anymore. Okay. The Rabba, Aliba the Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabba's explanation, according to Rabbi Yehuda, The Amar Adam To'eh Shalosh Sha'ot Chaser Mashu, where he says that a person might make an error slightly less than 3 hours. Okay, what do we have? Mitchilat Arba Lo Nichol. Then from the beginning of the 4th hour, okay, should we allow him to eat? Chamesh, the 5th hour, Chama b'Mizrach. Okay, there the sun would be in the east. V'Sheva, Chama b'Ma'arav. And in the 7th hour, the sun is in the west. The Kol Shekain Arba. And certainly let him eat throughout the 4th hour. Hihachi, if that's the case, B'Chamisha Nami Nichol. In the 5th hour also, maybe we should let him eat. Now, says the Gemara, Tirgama Abaye Aliba de Rabba. Abaye then explained it according to the view of Rabba. Edut Mesura Zrizin Chametz L'Kol Masur. Namely, here again, we're saying that testimony is given over to those that are, let's say, more conscientious, okay, versus chametz, the prohibition, is given over to everybody. Okay. Now, having reached this point in the Gemara, Rav is going to present another statement. The Rav Amam, Lav Hainu Tama de Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, don't we have a certain reasoning? Okay, that may not be the reason of Rabbi Yehuda. Ella Rabbi Yehuda Latame. But maybe Rabbi Yehuda has his own reasoning. The Amar Ein Bi'ur Chametz Ella Sreifa, where Rabbi Yehuda holds that there is no real destruction, disposal of the chametz other than by burning. Okay. V'yahavu le Rabbanan sha'a achat lilkot ba'etzim. And that in Rabbi Yehuda's view, he could perhaps argue, if that's the case, the rabbis then are giving 1 hour, that hour of abeyance, right? Right, that 5th hour for people to be able to go and gather wood so that they can then burn the chametz according to his view. Now, Eitive Ravina the Rabba. Ravina comes along and he challenges Rava, okay, from the following. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, this is Rabbi Yehuda, Ematai, right? At what point do we say the chametz has to be disposed? Shelo b'sha'at bi'uro, if it's not done, okay, at the appropriate time of disposal. Aval b'sha'at bi'uro, hashbatato b'chol davar. But if it's done at its appropriate time, its destruction, its removal can be done in any manner, okay, through any means. Ela Amar Rava, says Rava, Gzera Mishum Yom HaMe'unan. So Rava's answer to that challenge is, well, maybe it's a cloudy day, okay, and it would be difficult for people to see the sun. And how are they going to know then, right, what to do? Ihachi. Afilu ba'arba sha'ot nami lo nichol. Okay, if that's the case, then maybe even at the beginning of the 4th hour, we should not let them eat. Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, arba zman su'uda l'kolhi. According to Rav Papa, okay, we let them eat at the beginning of the 4th hour because that's the normal, I was going to say, the usual breakfast or the usual meal time, because we need to remember they only ate generally 2 meals a day. Okay, one, we'll call it late morning, all right, and then another meal towards the evening. except in Shabbat. That's when they had Suda Shlishit, their third meal. Okay, so Rav Papa is telling us, right, that the beginning of the fourth hour. So if we were to say, like I gave the other day, a 24-hour clock, and it started at 1 and went to 12, okay? But let's say sunrise, just for the sake of making it easier, was at 6 o'clock in the morning. Beginning of the fourth hour might be, let's say, sometime between 9:30 and 10, okay? Right? Like we do after we have our shiur. That's when I have breakfast. Tanu Rabbanan. But then the Brighton comes along, and the Brighton is going to question Rav Papa's statement. Okay? And as a result, we get into a slight digression. Tanu Rabbanan. Sha'a Rishona Ma'achal Ludim. The first hour in the morning is the time that when it's eaten by the gladiators or a cannibalistic tribe. Two different, very different explanations of the word ludim here. Personally, I like to combine them, and I'm going to say those who are gladiators probably eat a meat meal first thing in the morning. In other words, to give them strength to go out to fight, or as a meal, lest they think they might die that day. Shniya, second hour of the day, ma'achayon listim. That's the time that robbers eat. Okay, they got to grab a quick meal, right? Shlishit, the third hour of the day, ma'achal yorshim. That's the day that somebody who's inheriting wealth, right? A little fancier, right, can eat. Revi'it, the fourth hour of the day, ma'achal poalim. That's the time that the workers generally eat, the field workers. Chamishit, the fifth hour of the day, ma'achal talmidei chachamim. That's when the sages eat. That's when they have their first meal. Okay? They have a very late breakfast, the sages, because they are busy learning Torah first thing in the morning. Shishit, ma'achal kol adam. The sixth hour of the day, that is when the most average people. Vaha'amar Rav Papa, says the Gemara. But didn't Rav Papa say, Revi'it Zman Sudala Kolhi? Didn't he say that the fourth hour is the time that most people have their first meal? Ela Ipuch. Rather reverse the order. Revi'it Ma'achal Kol Adam. So let's say that the fourth hour is the time that most people eat. Chamishit Ma'achal Poalim. The fifth hour, the time for the workers. Shishit Ma'achal Chachamim. The sixth hour, the time of the meal, first meal for sages. Mikan Va'elech. And anyone who eats after that, Kizorek Evan Lechema. It's like throwing a stone into a leather bottle. Okay? The implication of the Meforshim, both is that it's really of no benefit. You're not getting much strength if you don't eat till late in the morning or almost at the beginning of afternoon. Now, Amar Abaye, Lo Amran, Ela Delo Ta'im Mide Mitzpitzaf. Abaye's qualification is that they didn't say that only in a situation if someone didn't taste or eat anything at all since the morning. Aval ta'im midei b'tzafla. But if he had something, tasted something in the morning, lit lan ba, then there's no significance to that statement. Now, Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi wants to give us Okay, another discussion on this issue. Okay, k'machloket be'edut kach machloket b'chametz. Okay, that their argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda regarding testimony is is similar to their argument in regards to chametz. So the Gemara's answer is pshita. Isn't that obvious? Hainu hach. Okay. The armorinim. Isn't that what we've said? Okay. Ha kamashmalan. Therefore, here it comes to tell us shinui de shanina. Okay. The shinui, right? Shinuyahu. I mean that this is the explanation, the resolution, the answer that we gave. Velo tema tanaihi. And there's no reason to say that there was an actual machloket tanaim in this case. Now, Amar Rav Shimi bar Ashi. Rav Shimi bar Ashi, okay, wants to clarify further. Lo shanu ela b'sha'ot. Their argument really wasn't about anything except in terms of the hours of the day. Aval echad omer kodem hanetzachama. But if one said it was before sunrise, ve'echad omer achar hanetzachama, and the other said it was after sunrise, edutam b'teila, then their testimony is invalid. Pshita, says the Gemara. Isn't that also obvious? Ela echad omer kodem hanetzachama. But if one of them said it was before sunrise, ve'echad omer betoch hanetzachama, and the other said it was during sunrise. Okay, what happens? Edutam b'teila. Again, their testimony is invalid. Ha nami pshita. Here too, isn't this obvious? Mahu detema. So what are you trying to tell us? Travaihu chada milta ka'amri. That the two of them are really saying the same or one thing. Vahad de ka'amar. And the one who says, as we go over a little bit, betoch hanetzachama, okay, that it occurred during the time of sunrise. Begilui havakai. He was talking about the light, the glow, okay, of what was happening. V'zaharure ba'alma. Okay, and what he saw was not that the sun itself was up, but that the aura, the radiance of the sun had started rising. Hu dechaza. That's what he saw. Kamashmalan. And that's what he's trying to inform us. Now, what happens? Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav, says Rav Nachman in the name of Rav, halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda, that the law is like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara now at this point is going to pick up where we'll do tomorrow and see that are we clear? Are we sure that the law is like Rabbi Yehuda? Okay, maybe we should say that the law is like Rabbi Meir in certain situations, but we're going to examine that tomorrow, okay, and then pick that up a little bit more, okay, as well. All right, so we'll stop there today, all right, and then go on. Right, so everybody have a good day today. Take care, stay well as well. Right?
Have a good day. Take care.